Hey everybody, it's Bill Gillard here. Welcome to Author Showcase. I'm here with my friend Tom Cannon, who's a poet laureate of Oshkosh.
Hello everybody.
We're here to talk about books and writing, and the starting, the completing of books, the selling of books, the community of writers that is here in Oshkosh and beyond.
Yep, so we're going to get into that today. And part of our community is this show, Oshkosh Author Showcase, and I've been a host on this show. Me and Dixie Jarko and I were the hosts for several years, and then during COVID we had to close up shop. We're back new, stronger and better before, and part of that is by bringing in Bill Gillard here, a friend of mine and professor at UW Oshkosh, and he's going to be interviewing me today. Of all the interviews that I did over the course of our first run, I didn't get to be interviewed, so this is my time to finally get interviewed.
No pressure, Tom.
Yeah.
This should be fun, though. Tom and I have spent a lot of time together over the last, couple of years.
Yes, yeah.
So we're working on the Lakefly Writers Conference. We're on that board. Which is a fantastic event here in the city of Oshkosh that brings together writers from the whole region and beyond. We get writers coming from kind of far away. And our writing path continues to parallel each other. We've done several workshops in libraries, just getting out to meet people and having some fun.
We've done quite a few sessions together, workshops, and we always have fun. I think attendees do as well.
Sure, yeah, I hope so. It's always nice to kind of, for me anyway, crawl out of the basement from where I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of writing for my job at UWO, and I do a lot of writing just because, as a hobby and to get my books out there. But to meet other people is always fun.
Yeah.
In fact, I was at the Waiawega International Film Festival this week, over the weekend, and it was really, really fun. It was a great time. They screened Psycho last Wednesday. Which is the Alfred Hitchcock film from 1960, and Robert Bloch wrote the novel on which the film was based in 1959, which was based on his first impressions of the Ed Gein story that was coming out of Plainfield at the time. And it was really fun, 100 people in the audience or so, and I introduced the film, and then everybody watched the film, and it's such a great venue there, the Opera House in Waiawega. And then afterward, we had a lot of give and take, really fun discussion. Met a lot of great people out there, and in the tiny little town of Waiawega, Wisconsin, the sign says 1,700 people, and suddenly we had a whole bunch of people who were really interested in international films and all that, and so if you build it, they will come.
Yes, and though part of the next workshop we'll do together will probably be entitled. I came out of my basement for this, but we're happy to be there. And, writing is our primary focus. We love it. But because I became the poet laureate of Oshkosh, I started holding open mics around town and started attending to in different areas. And that's just a whole new experience. It's a lot of fun to meet people, to meet other writers, to meet poets, and to hear other people's stories and help them to write them sometimes as well. So.
Yeah, that could be magic. So, we're here to interview you, Tom, for the first time. After hosting this show for many years, you get your chance in the sun.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So, we'll talk about your books individually, of course, but how's your writing life going at this point? How does it fit into your life, into the day-to-day?
Well, now my youngest child is 23, so kind of settled in life. I do have 3 grandchildren, but there's now time for writing. And when I began, in college, writing between papers and staying up late at night and typing it on a word processor where the keystrokes would each go one by one, and then being up late and being on a Formica desk where I had a computer with Windows 3.1, and then I was at the desk, and next to it is Barbie's beauty salon. It's a lot easier, and just slowly, just kind of get in that groove, just get in the habit of writing. So it's going pretty good.
Good. Yeah, it makes a difference when you're writing for yourself and when you have time to write for yourself.
Yes.
So many tools, and I explain to my students, I used to have to go to the library to do research, and not just the closest library. Sometimes I would have to drive 50 miles to a library because they had the holdings that I needed to write the paper that I needed to write. And then their ability to, type for a while on their computer, save it, have it spell check, all those kinds of things. I still remember, Thomas, in college as an undergrad, this paper was late, as were many of my papers. And I was talking to my teacher, and the teacher said, well, I got to get my grades in at like 8 a.m., so you have to get it to my office before 7:30 a.m., like the last possible moment, or I can't accept it. So there I was. It was, December 19th or something, typing this paper on Chaucer on a typewriter. I still remember the onion skin erasable paper. And it was like a 15-page paper. It was like my magnum opus at that point. And I finished it, and I still had like 5 minutes, but it was pouring rain outside, and I had to run across campus to get to my teacher's office. And it was raining. I put it under my arm, under my coat, and I was running, and I got there, and it had rained on my paper and me. And the paper, I don't know if you remember the paper, it had like glue kind of, and the paper had gotten wet, and all the papers had congealed into this brick that it was completely... I'm lucky that my teacher laughed. It's like, here, you're never going to be able to read this, but here's my paper. Yeah.
But, sometimes nowadays the kids, their Wi-Fi goes down before they text the completed paper sitting from their couch.
Sure. Or the upload doesn't go well. Yeah. So, Tom, your first book, let's jump into this, was Tao of Apathy. What inspired this one?
I had just taken a collection of, as an English major, I had many jobs at minimum wage. Worked at gas stations. I worked at a lot of restaurants. I worked up at the airmail facility in the Twin Cities. There's a cast of characters, and so I just kind of collect these stories, and I saw the kind of the insanity of the workplace and the different people. And so I tried to put every weird person I ever saw and write them into this book. They're, of course, fictional characters and stuff. And I just thought I would try to make this humorous book about work and have some poignant times and things like that. I really was kind of inspired by Joseph Heller of Catch-22.
Good.
He does that so well. It's not quite as intricate as Catch-22, but I just wanted to get those sometimes silly beats, and there's some serious things in this book, but there's also some almost farcical things. I remember I named one of the doctors Dr. Rhinoceros Hide.
That's Heller-esque.
Exactly. Yes. Major.
Good.
And so I wrote this book, and for quite a long time ago, and I polished it, and then I realized, and I sent it out, and I realized that there's not a huge market for humorous novels. I mean, there's humorous books, and there are humorous novelists, but for the initial book, there's not a huge market for that, and you have to kind of have a name. And so then Lakefly Writers Conference began, and I wanted to do a session. I wanted to teach a workshop. Well, then I had to find something to do. So I thought I would do it on self-publishing. So on a shoestring budget, I went and I figured out how to do self-publishing, and this is the product of that book, and 2013, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, that's really interesting. You talk about that cast of characters. Shattered was your next novel, and this is the first novel of yours that I've read, that I read. And what struck me was your ability to create characters that have layers, and not only that have a strong voice, and frequently not just one voice, a voice like an internal voice, and an external one, and it sounds, now I see how it came out of the Tao of Apathy, like these. Would you say you're a good listener in general? And talk about your listening skills as a writer.
And actually, that kind of goes back to my days, English major at UW, University of Wisconsin Marathon, a 2-year center.
Nice.
And I had a professor, and I think, I can't remember what the class was, but it was actually almost like sociology about interpersonal skills. And one of the things was how to active listen, and be genuine about wanting to know people's stories. And as a writer, I find people's stories interesting, so I'm always ready to hear people's stories.
Good. Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. A long time ago, I drove solo from San Francisco to New York, and I didn't have really any money at the time. I was, coming home, and I was in doing a delivery of a car, and I didn't realize until I was like in Sacramento and heading up into the hills that the car's radio didn't work. It had no antenna. It had been like snapped off. And also, once I started getting into the hills, I realized the car didn't have any heat. And heading up into the Rocky Mountains, which was exciting. But I did have a little tape recorder, one of those little mini cassette recorders, and I recorded myself, which is, crazy to do. But I also, I went into a Waffle House in North Platte, Nebraska, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just kind of let it record because there was a couple behind me having a little bit of an argument at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty interesting. Yeah. And just the interaction with the server coming up and all that. And then I tried to just write down, word for word, like a transcript of what happened. And it was hard, but I learned about pacing, and I learned about just how people phrase things and how people, like me right now, just never end their sentence. Their sentence just goes and goes and goes, and with semicolons and conjunctions and all that. Yeah. But to learn how to listen is such an important skill, and I think, it really shows in your writing.
Oh. Yeah. Thank you. That's very important to me, and it kind of reminded me of when I started this book. Started this book a long time ago, and it began as just my own experience of, feeling better, like your first heartbreak and heartbreaks after that, where you kind of harden yourself and you don't want to feel that things that you'd rather not feel anything than your heartbreak. And I just wanted to amp that up. And so that began writing a long time ago. And then went to the Twin Cities, worked at their facility. And then during the day, I would work in the actual airport, and I would help elderly people and people that needed a wheelchair. I'd push them from gate to gate. And so that was interesting just to see the different types of people that were there, the types of people that were running the cards, and just fascinating people. Like I had a father who had been doing work, down in the Panama, I believe, and missionary work, and he'd done it for 20 years, and I had to push him for 2 gates. But he's just a fascinating guy.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So I'd like to take pieces of bits and pieces of things that I hear, and actually, skip ahead a little bit. This book, Parts of Me, this actually came. A lot of the stories came from a friend of mine, my friend Al, which I haven't actually told him yet. But he liked to talk. He was this guy, he had an interesting life. He had interesting friends. Back in the day, he was a biker and stuff. So he just had these interesting stories, and I incorporated them there, and like things, events, and kind of the way people were. And they turned out to be some of my favorite stories.
Good. What's the inspiration? Did you do comedy open mics? Where you have ever been on stage as a comedian? Where did that come from?
No, I don't like speaking in public.
You're not funny in any way.
No,
so it's shocking.
Very academic.
Tom's a very funny guy.
Yes, thank you. I could never, which surprising, yeah. I would love to, and I always have wanted to. And maybe if I did about 1,000 more open mics reading my poetry, I'd be able to do it. But I've always just had a great respect for that. And so I just, the setting for the book is the Twin Cities, because I was up living in the Twin Cities, and just moved up there by myself. And so some of the experiences of that, and that incorporated with my fascination with stand-up comics. I began by reading Sign Language, by Seinfeld, and it was just an interesting thing for my main character to do, is to be a comic. And so I have probably 50 books written by stand-up comedians.
Wow. What's the thread that runs through them? I mean, because every comedian, they present themselves as a little different on stage, and certainly you can see some big differences between them and among them. But so what's something that runs through it, and how did you use that kind of primary research to inform Shattered?
Just for what I was looking for was, what's it like to be on stage? What's it like to drive from city to city and go from club to club? What was it like to stand up? What was it like to, sit there and write your material and be up on stage? And a lot of comedians, the ones that are good, the ones that have remained and have longevity, they've slowly transitioned from writing jokes to writing about their lives and taking risks with, their inner monologue. And that's kind of true with Mikey, the main character, and they've written variously on, some of them just want to be a lot of jokes. Ray Romano doesn't get too in depth, but he likes to talk about his life and little funny vignettes that happened to him. And George Lopez was more about, his name of his book is Why You Crying? Well, growing up with a harsh grandma, it just runs the whole gamut. And so it's just I would say it's their connection with honesty. How honest do they want to be? How true to themselves they want to be, and developing their voice.
And in Shatter, that pops up frequently as the character's trying to navigate exactly that question, and factoring in the audience response to a sliver of honesty or a big plate full of honesty, can really affect the character's day and the character's impression of like how things went. I think you really captured that, the gap between the inner world and the outer world, especially when the outer world is performed on a stage in front of people who are expecting to laugh, and you're bringing them tragedy. And frequently they'll laugh at your tragedy.
Yes, they don't realize it. Yes, and I think probably at times other comedians have done that, where it's like they know what they're doing, they got their set, they can take hecklers and stuff. But then when you're taking a downswing where they're depressed and things aren't going their well and they're going through something, then it does have an effect on them, and it does affect their life and their appearances on stage.
Sure. Good. Hey, so you have a new poetry collection, Nuances of Family, whose cover I love.
Do you?
Yeah. But I want to talk to you about your role in the Oshkosh Writers Group that you've been a part of for a long time out of the Oshkosh Public Library. And you've done at least I mean, you did that poetry collection, the Oshkosh-based poetry collection, and you've done at least one collection of the Oshkosh Writers Group. How many have you? Is it one? Is it one or two?
Two anthologies.
Yeah, two anthologies. Right. Talk about your kind of public role as a leader in the community of Oshkosh, as poet laureate, but also as somebody who's just bringing people together. And you might want to talk about your new poem, Nuances of Family.
Ooh. Thank you. Yes. And so, when was it? It's like 25 years now that the Oshkosh Area Writers Club has been going, and it's evolved over the years. But it's just a chance for those writers to come together and get what they need. It's different things for different people. My needs of going to the club have changed over the years, and so 2003, I think, we did an anthology where we just had the attendees at the Oshkosh Area Writers Club come together and create their own book, and the whole gamut of somebody like me who has been published, and then there's other people where they have not ever been published, and maybe they're not that interested in it, and put it together so that they have it and can say, I've been published. And actually, one of those people that were in that anthology is somebody that means a lot to me, Paul Christie. And he came to me, and he knew that I had self-published a book, and he wanted me to put together a collection of his poems. And his poems were great, but for various reasons. He wasn't out in the public, and he wasn't ever going to publish a book. He did great poetry, and so we kind of took together and made a format for his poems, put the poems in different seasons, and got it out there and formatted it and got a cover. And in the end, Paul really wanted to just have 25, 30 books that he could hand out to friends and to people he knew. He volunteered at the Mercy Medical Center for many, many years. He had lots of dear friends. And he just wanted something that he could share. Here's my poems. And so, that's the great thing, kind of my message is about writing is, whatever audience you end up getting, whatever audience you're comfortable with, that's enough. You're going to make that impact. But if you could just keep trying, it's not ever going to be a waste of time. And then we came back together, and I think there's probably about 3 original people from the first anthology to try it again. And it is a huge undertaking. Anthology and formatting and editing takes a lot to do, but it's kind of fun as well. And so that's, as the Oshkosh Poet Laureate, I have put together a chapbook of just on Oshkosh, and those people that came and submitted, they wrote about Oshkosh, they love Oshkosh. It was their chance to be in a chapbook, and I was just going to put it as a PDF and say, if you want that, here you go. But then I experimented with making it into a soft cover, and I did. And then that kind of prepared me to now do a self-published book, Nuances of Family, and it's more of a personal book, and it's obviously about my family. And so my friend Paul Christie, who passed away, his book was Nuances of Time. And so who would know but me, but I wanted to be Nuances of Family in respect to Paul Christie. And this cover, the cover actually my dad painted many, many years ago. It's actually, I grew up on a farm, and that's our barn and our granary. So it's important that the cover reflect that and bring my dad in. But so just many different stories about parenthood and being a parent, being a brother, being a child of farmers.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Any poem kind of stick out that might be worth reading today?
Yes. Well, there's probably one of them, and that's probably wouldn't be the poem that would encapsulate, what the book is about. But poetry is a great way to process things and to remember, important things in your life. And so there's a poem called Small Town EMT. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father as I bring him back to life. On the floor of my childhood home, my mother kneels next to him. She has to be the one to let him go. We squeezed and breathed the life back into him, trying to get him to float on the surface of existence. In every waking moment, I see him sink slowly beneath the waves. Where is he as the white-gloved men hands my mother the flag and tumble the spent shells into her shaking hands? He is not there. Lower whatever you want into the ground. When I close my eyes, I see my father slowly assembling himself into the man I love. Only then do I sleep. And I wrote that for my cousin Teresa. My Uncle Leo was a small town, he was a firefighter for like 40 years. Everybody in town loved him, small town of Sharon, Wisconsin. And my cousin actually had this experience. Her dad was sickly. She was an EMT. She got the call. She went over to her mom's house. Her and her mom performed CPR. And then they had to make the decision just to let him go. And so that's, the words in the last stanza are from her.
That's amazing. And the language there, I think it struck me as I heard you read it, the lower whatever you want, the rhythm there and the repetition of the sounds, it becomes, a really kind of dark, fraught moment gets those moments of harmony into it. That's just really effective, especially out loud.
Yes. So what she had to go through, but on the other hand, there's the love of her parents. And so, my advice is, as poet laureate, or just, as a person, is write what you want to write about, what's on your mind, what you wonder what's on your mind. And turning it into a poem is great because you can take that pain and turn it into a work of art. You write that poem, you get it out, it's great, there you have a poem. But then also go back and keep editing it. Edit it for the sounds and for the repetition and for the rhythm. You can work out, then you just that much a better poem, and again, you're still processing what you want to talk about.
Sure. And it's another great example of the importance of listening as a writer, as an artist in general, just being open to the world and hearing that story, as hard as it is and as hard as it was for your family, to be able to distill it into a moment that I can identify with, that readers can identify it. It's very specific, and some close version of that happened, but it's also something that, lower whatever you want into the ground, and he's gone. Is some paraphrase of the line, but that's the ability that I see kind of running through all this. You're really careful listening and observing skills, and that's a something like shooting a basketball or riding a bike. That's something that we all have the ability to hope see and smell and taste and touch and
it probably started as almost like a crutch.
Sure.
I mean, I'm interested in listening and hearing what people have to say, but also if I actually heard somebody say it and I use those words, then I going to have verisimilitude. It's going to sound authentic because it is. But also, the more specific you get, the more personal you can get, the more universal it'll get, and the more message it will reach to people, the more you can connect with people.
Yeah, I've heard writers described as gregarious loners. That, I guess, we like to be around people, but maybe we don't like to talk so much. Maybe it's just that being there, to be kind of surrounded, to be immersed in all the stories that are going on with people we know, with acquaintances, just being, people watching, those kinds of things.
And I think there's a hunger to be heard nowadays.
That's true.
So whatever you can to listen to somebody and to show that you are listening and that you know what they're feeling. I mean, that is the way to keep our society moving forward.
Sure. Yeah, in both of our professional lives, those listening skills are so important. You know, I'm in the classroom and I've got students. I don't know their I mean, they tell me sometimes little small slivers of it. I'm lucky enough to teach creative writing, and so I get maybe bigger pieces of it, but sometimes I just make the wrong assumptions, you know, like a student didn't do the work, therefore, you know, fill in the blank. But, you know, what do I know unless I take the time to just really listen, maybe to ask a question or two, and to give a student time to bring me whatever they need to bring me at that moment.
And I do think that is kind of the theme of Shattered a little bit, is you don't understand what other people are going through. You can make assumptions, and, you know, and my main character, Mikey, he does some stuff that is bad. It's terrible. And part of that is amped it up just, you know, because I want it to be a fascinating story, but also people do things and you don't understand what they're doing or what they're going through at the moment. You can't really know.
Yeah. I went to high school with a guy named Greg Giraldo. He's a comedian.
Oh.
And he died pretty young. But man, in high school, it was, you know, a small boys high school in New York City, and Greg, gosh, the funniest, like most wickedly cruel guy, like just even make everybody laugh as he's just tearing you apart. And you know, he continued that into his life as a professional comedian, and it was an outlet, but it also was covering up just a lot of real pain and just so many unresolved kind of issues he had that were magnified by alcohol and drugs and all that. But he used comedy as a way to kind of deflect and as a way to just say things that he couldn't say to his wife, or he couldn't say without, like, out in the world getting arrested, you know. But if he was up on stage, you know, he could just tear into you. And it was
wow. Gerald, I think any comedian known today knows that name. He was big in the roasts.
Absolutely.
He was always wanted. Wow.
Yeah. Every day in high school. Oh my God. No one could hang with Greg. He would just, if he swung around and picked you as a target, well, that was the end of that day, because you weren't keeping up with him. Yeah, he's pretty amazing, but a lot of pain throughout. Good. So what's your next project?
Coming out soon-ish, I hope, is I signed a contract with All Things That Matter Press.
Excellent.
And I know that you have a book through there.
I do. Yeah.
And so I'm pretty excited about that.
And it's a novel.
It's a novel, and we'll see what the title ends up being. Right now it's about No More Ugly Girls, but it's almost like a companion piece, not a companion piece of Shattered, but this is kind of about a guy who is troubled. And I think we find that guys are more external. If they're going through pain, they do external things, they act out. Whereas women are more internal. If they're going through things, if they're struggling stuff, they are more hurtful to themselves. And so I wrote it. It's kind of like a tribute to women in particular, that hold on to, they're so strong, and sometimes we think that they're weak for the choices they make. But in the end, it's because they're too strong. They're holding on to their secrets or their traumas, and they just can't let go. And so that's what my main character, Auburn, is struggling with, and it's through her struggle to work through all those things.
That's great. Congratulations on the new book. Does it have a publication date in sight?
No.
Okay.
But it takes time.
Good. Oh, it takes a lot longer than it really should. But yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. Well, good. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for being here on Author Showcase for the millionth time, but your first time as a guest. Yeah. And my first time also ever on this show.
Yes, and so we hope to bring you local authors from the surrounding area. Actually, anybody that will come, but mostly from the Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, Appleton, a little bit further. We've had quite a few authors. I'm hoping to have some poets that I've met through open mics. And so if you want to be on the show, I want to invite authors to contact us at Oshkosh Author Showcase at gmail.com. And then also look us up on social media. Look at us up on Amazon. Check out, correspond with us, give us some input. Maybe check out our books. You could look for Bill Gillard's books. He's on Amazon. Look for Dixie Jarko. Dixie has quite a few books out in the fantasy realm. I really enjoy those. You can hit me up on social media and my website, thomascannonauthor.com. I do have a Facebook group called Oshkosh Poet Laureate, and it's on Facebook, but it's not about me. It's about the community of poets in Oshkosh and what they want to say, what they want to talk about, and share poetry that they love. So that'll do it for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for joining in.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Author Showcase of Oshkosh with your hosts, Dixie Joe Jarko, Bill Gillard, and Thomas Cannon. We'd love to hear from you, whether you're interested in being a guest on the show, have a question, or want to share your thoughts. Please reach out to us on social media or via email at OshkoshAuthorShowcase@gmail.com.